Thank you very much. And good morning. Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. Right. So about myself, I'm not going to bother you too much with that. I'm from Denmark. Yoo-hoo. I worked with usability since 1984, probably before many of you were born, which doesn't prove anything, of course. What I learned during these 40 years was that the more I delve into usability, the more difficult it becomes. There's one thing, I need to honor my two co-authors, because this work was done together with Bernhard Rommel, who works for SAP in Germany, and Susanne Wasserroth, who works for T-Systems in Germany. They are my co-authors. They inspired me to do this work and did the work together with me. Now, first, before I get started, two things. Number one is on the slide. If the users can't use it, it doesn't work, even if it fulfills specifications. The other thing is, who is it in the end that's paying your salary? The users. So shouldn't we just try to give a little bit of credit to the users? I think so. Here's what my talk is about. It's a usability test, and it's really very simple. Like one of my colleagues, Steve Crook, says, it's not rocket science. So a usability test, here to the left, you have my friend Huxley. He's a moderator and note taker. In the middle, you have the system that's being tested, in this case, a website. And to the right, you have a usability test participant. And it's really very simple. The moderator hands a usability test participant a task. For instance, buy a can of sodas on this website and have it shipped to your address. And then he leans back, shuts up, and observes. So here it is again. Usability test, recruit test participants, write the usability test tasks, shut up and observe, and buckle up for some surprises. Because very often, interesting and totally unforeseen things are going to happen. And that's what I like particularly about these usability tests. These are the duh moments where I say, oh yeah, of course they can't figure that out. Why didn't I see that myself? But good that we have usability testing so the users can help me understand where the problems are. And then in the end, we need to communicate the result, bring the bad news to the developers and the designers, because our work often leads to more work for them. So the purpose of a usability test is, of course, to find usability problems. Simple. But there's one more thing that we use usability testing for, and that is to convince others that usability problems are real and serious. And we use that to convince, for example, management or skeptical developers. Can you believe it? There are some developers who say, my opinion is that this website works beautifully. When you show them that one user after the other, the people who pay their salaries, have to struggle seriously with their website, many, not all unfortunately, but many start to get convinced. A system can work exactly according to specifications and still have critical usability problems. Now I'm talking a bit about usability problems. Maybe I should show you some examples. So here is number one. The Trello servers are getting some TLC. We'll be back as soon as possible. Check our status log for updates. What are the usability problems in this simple error message? TLC, that's right. Oh, but the designer would say, everybody knows what TLC means. Can I see a show of hands? How many of you do not know what TLC means? That's what I've found too. Is there anyone who knows what TLC means? Tender loving care. Yes, thank you. Right. My numbers show that about 1 in 10 knows what TLC means. So there is a usability problem. You should not use abbreviations that the users don't understand. That's number one. There's at least one more problem. What is that? Yeah, check our status log for updates. Yeah, that's not what I'm after. There might be a usability problem in that. No, what I'm after is, we'll be back as soon as possible. Bah, that doesn't help me. What is that? Is that 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week? I don't know. That's not usable. So, we'll be back as soon as possible. Right, instead, we expect to be back at 11 a.m. today, and not just today, but today, Thursday, the 26th of October. There's one thing that is good about this, and that's one of the reasons why I chose this, and that is it contains a picture of a cat. And I have been told repeatedly by my audiences that no presentation is successful without at least one picture of a cat. So I have fulfilled that. Here's another one. An unknown error occurred. Or there's an alternative version of this. This message should not appear. What's wrong with that? And what should we say instead? I'm sure that some of you have seen this message or something similar, a variant. There's some very clever variants of this. What should we say instead? And this is where the usability engineer comes in, because they might have seen it before, or they might talk to users and ask the users, what can we say instead? So here's my suggestion: internal system error. We apologize. Because that's what it's all about. We made an error. It's not your fault. Please try again, preferably with a different browser, because sometimes that helps. If the problem persists, please drop us a line. We know 99% of the users are not going to do that, but it might still be worth a try. Note that the usable error message is much longer than the unusable one. So what I spent much of my time doing is preparing certification materials. We have something called a usability test certification. You study for about 3 days, and then you take 2 examinations, and at the end, if you pass, you get a wonderful certificate that you can frame and hang on your wall. So the certification test has 2 parts. There's a theoretical part where you have to answer 40 test questions, exam questions, in 90 minutes. And then there is the practical one where you have to conduct a small usability test with 3 participants, recorded on video and submitted to a human being, not to ChatGPT or some system like that, but to a human being who will intelligently grade it and give you feedback. So what I'm going to present in the rest of my talk is the results, what we learned, what might be a benefit to you from these 150 videos, 150 practical examinations we have conducted. And since there were 3 test sessions, this amounts to a total of 450 usability test sessions. Before we started our study, we were, of course, aware of a number of problems. Moderators talk too much. The The usability test becomes an interview. The moderators ask leading questions, that is, questions that give a clear indication of the kind of answer that the moderator would really like to hear. Would you have liked to receive special offers? And the final one is that moderators write unusable test reports. Now, people like me, who claim that they are usability professionals, of course have one big responsibility, and that is to set a good example for the world by doing usable stuff themselves. So I frown at usability test reports that are 200 pages long, without an executive summary, without a table of contents. And unfortunately, I see that sometimes. Right. So here are the key learnings. Here are the key learnings from our study. I will take them, I will go through them one by one. Consider the diagnostic value. Now, we can ask a number of test tasks during a test session. A test session typically lasts about 90 minutes, anywhere from 5 to 90 minutes. The typical length is 45 to 50 minutes. During this time, we are able to ask about 10 test questions. Book a flight, cancel the flight, change a flight, check in for a flight, and so on and so forth. I have an example over here on a weather website. The moderator sets the task, find the current weather forecast for Vilnius. That's an absolutely acceptable task. We might learn something from it. But after this task, the task, find the current weather forecast for Riga, has limited diagnostic value, because after learning from finding the weather forecast for Vilnius, we probably won't learn a lot from trying to find the weather forecast for Riga. So a much higher diagnostic value would be the task. Suppose you're planning a 2-hour walk, starting right here and now. Find out on the website if you need an umbrella. That's an okay task. It tests a new part of the user interface. So that's what I mean by diagnostic value. Each task should be clearly different and test a different area of the website than the previous one. I said just a moment ago that I try hard to make my presentations usable. Usability to me also means involving the audience. So now it's your turn. Grab your smartphone, and I'm sure you all brought your smartphone, didn't you? Go to sendsteps.me, and it's going to ask you for an access code, and it's the simplest access code I could think of. It's Anna. And then you will see the questions appear. Select the right one and lean back. Yep, let's take a look. Oh, there are still a few ones coming. Right. Ah, very interesting. I think that C is a perfectly acceptable task. It's the weather forecast, not for today, but the day after tomorrow. So I think that's fine. D was the one that I just gave in the example. I think that's fine too. Now B is a little bit interesting because you might say A is about the same as B. What's the difference between Birmingham and Brighton? Does anyone know why is B actually an acceptable task? Brighton is difficult to spell. Of course, if you give it away by giving the task in writing, you won't gain anything because the test participant will just read the spelling from the task you gave them. But if you say it, many people are just going to write B-R-A-T-O-N if they don't know the weird English ways of spelling. So task B is good to test the error tolerance of the website. Is the search error tolerant? So that's why I think B qualifies as an acceptable task. Right, so the next one is we should avoid clues in task phrasings. And a clue is an information in the task description that is not known to the test participant, but might help them in some way in solving the task. Here's an example, a task with clues. If you were to subscribe for a free trial today of this magazine, when will you need to cancel your subscription to avoid being charged for a full subscription? That one has several clues, cancel and subscription, because these are words that are being used on the website. So a cleaner version of the same task without clues, what happens after your trial period for the magazine ends? You should avoid pretender tasks. A pretender task is a task that asks the test participant to imagine that they are someone, to pretend to be someone they're not. And these tasks cause problems, especially if they are political. Let me show you again some examples. You love to visit Dubai, and tomorrow you will leave there for a wonderful holiday. Please find out what the weather will be like for the next 7 days. Now, the test participant might not like to go to Dubai for political reasons. So the assumption here, the pretension, is incorrect. A rephrasing removes this. Find the weather forecast for Dubai for the next 7 days. I think that's perfectly okay. Here we have it again, a different task. You are planning a holiday in Lithuania. Rent a powerful sports car to get around. And as you can see here, the test participant actually objects to the idea of renting a powerful sports car, because that's against her political ideas of protecting the environment. You should avoid imprecise tasks. An imprecise task is a usability test task whose goal is unclear, which makes it difficult to determine when the goal has been achieved. And again, an example. In the newspaper, find an article that interests you. That is imprecise because any article will do. I've seen test participants that just pointed at the first article on the homepage and said, yeah, I'm really interested in that. Let's move on. We need objective observation. A usability test, that's a definition, shows what representative users are able to accomplish with the interactive system when they carry out representative tasks undisturbed. And then the very important addition, eliciting personal opinions from users or discussing them is not part of a usability test. It may be part of other excellent usability methods like interviews or design critique or usability inspection, but it's not part of a usability test. So here we have a moderator who violates this. What do you think of this? I like it. What do you think of that? Looks cool. Do you like the colors? Yes. That is opinions. But in a usability test, the core of a usability test is to observe what the test participant can do and what they cannot do if the moderator were not present. So we should stick strictly to observation in a usability test session because talking with participants generates opinions. That does not mean that the moderator should shut up completely. A few remarks are allowed. There is, of course, nothing wrong with talking to a usability test participant, but it's not a usability test. Just like talking to a stranger in an elevator about a certain system is not a usability test. It may generate interesting insights anyway. So I have it here. To the left, TTA, traditional think aloud, shut up and observe. And I especially like to teach this rule to newcomers because it's so simple to administer. And ITA, interactive think aloud, stop and discuss, which is a method that I do not recommend. But I must say, many of my colleagues practice it, also many experienced colleagues. So shut up and observe does not mean that the moderator has to stay entirely silent. Statements that are required to moderate properly are permitted, like please think aloud. We want the test participant to think aloud so we can follow their thoughts, hear about the ideas that they consider and that they reject. Please attempt to solve the task using only the prescribed website. Sometimes when test participants run into problems in a usability test, they immediately go to Google because they know Google has all the answers. Google is highly usable. And then, of course, the moderator, it's okay that the moderator gets them back to the original website, because that's really what we are interested in. We're not particularly interested in the usability of Google. And then if the participant gets stuck, then you can say, thank you, please proceed with to the next task. And there are also some examples of questions that you should not ask. What do you think will happen when you click this button? We're not interested in that. If the participant clicks it, fine. On their own, fine. We can observe what happens and if they can, what they do. Are the menu items comprehensible? Again, we are asking for an opinion, and that's not the part of the usability test. All right, I'll stop talking again. Grab your smartphones. Here's the next quiz question. I can provide a little help. ITA means interactive think aloud. TTA means traditional think aloud. The traditional think aloud was the one about shut up and observe. Yes, thank you. The majority voted for the right one. I think question C is acceptable in both TTA and ITA. I think B is also acceptable in both ITA and TTA, and the same applies for A. If anyone is still in doubt, or if anyone wants to discuss that with me, please grab me during the day. I'm going to be around all day, and ask me for more information. So we should observe in a usability test, we should observe test task solution, not simulation. And simulation happens if the test participant starts to make assumptions about other users. Other users might be annoyed about this ad. They start to pretend that they are other users. Here are some questions that could encourage simulation. What would you do if search does not return a helpful result? If you want to examine that, then you should have a usability test task that would generate, that would probably not generate an unusable, that would probably not generate a usable result. But asking the test participant to speculate about that is not usability testing. Or similarly, what would you have done if you had not found the article on the front page? Again, it's a hypothetical situation. It's not part of a usability test. Here we have it again. The test participant to the right. Other users may not notice the search button, but I did. So that's really a worthless observation. Another quiz question. Yeah, we passed the 200 mark. Not bad at all. My estimate is that there are about 200 people in the auditorium right now. So it seems that almost everyone is participating. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Let's take a look at the answers. Ah, good. 70% score for the right one. Yes. What would you have done if you hadn't found the article on the homepage? That's speculative. The other ones are okay. Right. We need to respect the dignity of the test participant. A basic rule in usability testing is that when the test session is over, the test participant should feel at least as well as when the test session started. And that means that we have to respect their dignity. If someone can't solve a task, you could say, "Thank you very much. You have shown us a problem we didn't know about." The unfortunate thing is that test participants often think that they're stupid when they can't solve a usability test task. So we have to explain to them very carefully that that's exactly why we're doing the test. Not to find out that they're stupid, but to find out, but to prevent other people from running into the same problem. Then we have seen, and this has happened only in a few cases, we saw a few cases where a female moderator was moving closer and closer to the male test participant. And the male test participant was moving away from her, clearly signaling he he wanted to keep a safe distance to the moderator. It didn't happen very often, though. So here's a clear examples of a disrespectful behavior. We actually saw that in a few cases. The moderator started checking his social media while the test participant was working on a test task. Finally, you should report substantial rather than trivial usability findings. Usability findings must be substantial. We should not report things like test participants liked the homepage. That is not helpful. Although there is a basic rule that we should have a number of positive comments in a usability test report. For two reasons. We want to tell the designers and developers that we actually respect that they did some things well. You know, like Mary Poppins says, with a handful of sugar, the medicine goes down. And finally, okay. I almost forgot the second one. We want to make sure that they don't accidentally remove the good things because no one told them explicitly, we like that. So positive comments in usability test reports are appreciated. And I must say, on the positive side, almost all of the test reports we saw as part of the CPUX examination contained a reasonable number of good positive comments. Instead of saying test participants like the homepage, you could say, if it's true, when solving all test tasks, all test participants found the correct first step from the homepage to the target page without any problems. And here's another one. Test participants noticed that search was available. Yeah, okay, so what? Positive or non-trivial, all test participants located search immediately and used it without problems. Wow, that's a positive finding. One more quiz question for you. Yep. Let's take a look. Yeah, okay. The majority votes for the right one. I think that A, B, and D are quite substantial findings. Especially D, which I think is close to a critical problem. They were unable to cancel their subscription because there was a certain button that they couldn't find. I think that is a very valid, non-trivial usability problem. One of the important points of doing a usable talk is, of course, to finish in time. So that's why I'm now moving to my summary. Here are some of the resources that I based on. We actually published much of what I have said here in the User Experience magazine. And if you use Google to search for improve your usability tests, learning from evaluating 100 plus usability tests, you can write the whole thing in prose. The CPU-XUT curriculum is about 70 pages long, contains the basics that you need, not the basic, it contains the things that you need to know to pass the examination. Of course, we offer training courses, but it's also possible to self-study. We try to be as honest as possible, so we don't just have the practical test. We also show what are the precise criteria that we use for the evaluation of the practical test. All these documents are available at no cost, the three latter ones, the curricula and so on, from uxqb.org. And this is what I've been trying to say. I'm not going to read or repeat this slide because it's really what I've been trying desperately to say during the past 45 minutes. So thank you very much for your attendance, and I am now ready to take questions if there are any.